When Helena Bergman left her house on that sunny morning of March 15th, 1993, no one imagined it would be the last time her feet would touch the ground of the small house in the northern region of Belo Horizonte. The sun was already rising strong, that autumn morning promising another hot day in the rapidly growing capital. Helena, only 19 years old, put on her brown leather sandals, combed her curly hair, which she had inherited from her mother, and kissed each family member goodbye, on the cheek, just as she did every morning. The smell of freshly brewed coffee still lingered in the kitchen, while the radio played country music that echoed through the brick walls of the house. A young woman worked as a sales assistant in a women's clothing store in the busy downtown area of Belo Horizonte, near the traditional Central Market. She was known for her punctuality and responsibility, qualities that quickly earned her the trust of her employer, Mrs. Eulalia, a woman in her early 50s who had managed the small shop for over a decade. Helena took 2 buses to get to work. First, one from her neighborhood to the city center. Then she transferred at Praca 7 to Suddenbro, the bustling heart of the capital. On that Tuesday morning, Helena wore a blue and white floral dress, a simple yet well-maintained piece that highlighted her expressive brown eyes. She carried a beige synthetic leather bag, a birthday gift from her parents the previous year, where she kept her wallet with a few reais, documents, pink lipstick, and a small round mirror. At 19, Helena was a dreamy young woman who balanced her time between working at the store and attending night classes in a technical secretarial course, hoping for a better future for her humble family. The Bergman family lived a simple and harmonious routine. Her father, Augusto Bergman, worked as a mechanic at a nearby garage, while her mother, Ingrid Bergman, took care of the house and did sewing work to supplement the family income. Helena had a younger brother, Klaus, 15, a diligent student who dreamed of becoming an engineer. The family had distant German roots, a reflection of the immigration that shaped Minas Gerais in the early 20th century, and they maintained some European traditions at home, such as drinking tea at 5 p.m. and making homemade bread on weekends. When Helena didn't return home at her usual time, around 7 p.m., the family initially didn't worry. Sometimes the young woman would stay a little longer at the store, helping Mrs. Eulalia close the register or organizing clothes for the next day. But when the clock struck 8:30 p.m. and she still hadn't shown up, Ingrid began to feel a growing unease in her chest. Augusto tried to reassure his wife, suggesting that perhaps Helena had gone to the movies with a friend or stayed studying at the library, something she occasionally did. At 9 p.m., with dinner growing cold on the table and no sign of Helena, the family decided to take action. Klaus went to the house of Fernanda Zimmermann, Helena's best friend since childhood, to see if she was there. Fernanda, surprised by the visit, confirmed that she hadn't seen Helena since the previous weekend, when the two had gone to the mall together. Concern began to spread like an oil stain over the family's tranquility. Augusto decided to call Mrs. Eulalia, the owner of the store where Helena worked. The call brought the first alarming news. Helena had left work at the usual time, around 5:30 p.m., saying goodbye to everyone as usual. Mrs. Eulalia reported that the young woman seemed to be in her normal state, chatting cheerfully with the customers and organizing the last sales of the day. There was nothing in her behavior that suggested any problem or concern. If you're enjoying this mystery, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to discover more intriguing cases like this. At midnight, with Helena still missing, the Bergman family decided to go to the police. At the nearest precinct, they were attended by an experienced investigator named Vanderlei Mora, a 45-year-old man who had worked on various missing persons cases in the metropolitan area of Belo Horizonte. Investigator Mora explained that, although it was concerning, cases of young people disappearing for a few hours were not uncommon, especially in a large city like Belo Horizonte in the early 90s. Helena Bergman was a young woman with a strong personality and well-defined dreams. Born in Belo Horizonte, she grew up in a working-class family that always valued education and personal effort. Since she was little, Helena showed a lively intelligence and a natural curiosity about the world around her. At school, she was a dedicated student, though not exceptionally brilliant, who won over teachers and classmates with her genuine kindness and willingness to help others. The young woman had a solid relationship with her family, especially her mother Ingrid, with whom she shared secrets and dreams about the future. Helena often spoke about her desire to study business administration at a university and, perhaps, one day open her own business. She admired Mrs. Eulalia and saw her employer as an example of an independent and successful woman in business. At work, Helena was loved by everyone. Mrs. Eulalia considered her almost like an adopted daughter, constantly praising her dedication and honesty. The store was located in a busy area of the city center, frequented by middle-class women who appreciated elegant clothes at affordable prices. Helena had a natural talent for sales, quickly understanding the tastes of customers and suggesting pieces that highlighted their best qualities. Among her colleagues, Helena maintained cordial relationships with the other two employees at the store. Valeria Koster, a 30-year-old woman responsible for the cash register, and Tatiana Hister, 25, who took care of stock and purchases. The three of them formed a harmonious team, although Helena was notably the youngest and most enthusiastic of the group. Fernanda Zimmerman, Helena's best friend, was practically a sister to her. The two had known each other since childhood and shared everything: dreams, fears, plans for the future, and even clothes. Fernanda worked as a receptionist in a medical office and would often meet Helena on weekends to go to the cinema, take walks in the municipal park, or simply talk about life. It was a solid friendship, built over years of mutual trust. Helena also had a discreet romantic relationship with Raphael Steinberg, a 22-year-old man she had met a few months earlier at a cousin's birthday party. Raphael worked as an administrative assistant at an accounting firm and was studying economics at night school. The relationship was still recent, and Helena's family knew Raphael only superficially, knowing that he existed, but without many details about his personality or intentions. In Helena's social circle, there were also less close but equally relevant figures. Edmilson Silva, the bus driver she took every morning, knew her by sight and always greeted her kindly. Helena was punctual and polite, traits the driver admired in regular passengers. There was also Mr. Valdemar Fischer, the owner of a stationery store near the shop where Helena worked, who had known her since she started working in the area. But not all the people in Helena's surroundings were completely trustworthy or transparent. In the months leading up to her disappearance, some questionable individuals had appeared in her daily routine. One of them was Ronaldo Kruger, a man in his 40s who had started to visit the shop where Helena worked with a suspicious frequency, always asking personal questions about the young woman's life and showing an interest that went beyond that of a regular customer. Ronaldo claimed to be a sales representative for a cosmetics company and always wore well-tailored suits. He drove a relatively new car and spoke eloquently about business and investment opportunities. He had offered Helena a higher-paying job at his company, a promise that tempted the young woman but also made her cautious. Mrs. Eulalia didn't like Ronaldo and had warned Helena to be careful with offers that seemed too good to be true. Another intriguing character was Mario Hoffman, a 25-year-old man who worked as a delivery driver for several stores in the downtown area. Mario knew Helena superficially and had shown romantic interest in her, even knowing about her relationship with Raphael. He was persistent in his flirting, always finding excuses to pass by the shop where Helena worked and try to strike up a conversation. The young woman always treated him politely but firmly, making it clear that she wasn't interested in a romantic involvement. The first clues about Helena's disappearance began to emerge when the official investigation was launched. The police gathered information about the young woman's last days, trying to reconstruct her routine and identify any behavior that seemed out of the ordinary. Mrs. Eulalia provided important details about Helena's last day at work, revealing that the young woman had received a phone call during business hours around 3 p.m. The call lasted only a few minutes, and Helena seemed a bit tense after answering it. When Mrs. Eulalia asked if everything was okay, Helena vaguely replied that it was just a personal matter and that there was no problem. Later, around 5 p.m., Helena mentioned to Valeria that she might need to deal with an important situation before going home, but didn't give further details about what this situation was. The investigation revealed that Helena had withdrawn her $100 from her savings account at the nearby bank just before leaving the store that day. It was a relatively significant amount for the young woman, who was usually very economical and rarely withdrew money without a specific need. The bank employee who assisted her remembered her because Helena seemed a bit nervous and checked her account balance several times before making the withdrawal. An intriguing clue emerged when investigators discovered that Helena had been seen by a witness in the area near the central station of Belo Horizonte, close to the bus terminal. Around 6 p.m. the witness, a woman who sold sweets at the location, remembered Helena because the young woman had stopped by her stall and bought a brigadeiro, something she occasionally did. But on that day, according to the seller, Helena appeared to be in a hurry and worried, behavior that was different from her usual attitude. Another piece of evidence discovered by investigators was a handwritten note found in the trash at the store where Helena worked. The paper, partially torn, contained an address in the Santa Teresa neighborhood and a time, 6:30 p.m. The handwriting was unfamiliar to Mrs. Eulalia and the other employees, suggesting that someone had given the note to Helena during the workday. The address matched an abandoned house in the area, which would later become a key point in the investigation. However, not all the clues turned out to be relevant. One piece of information that initially seemed important was the report of a witness who claimed to have seen Helena getting into a dark car in the central area of the city. But when the police investigated further, they discovered that the witness had mistaken Helena for another young woman with similar physical characteristics. This false lead caused the investigation to waste precious time heading in the wrong direction. The clues were piling up, but the mystery continued. If you're trying to solve this case with me, leave your theory in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. The official investigation into Helena's disappearance gained momentum when investigator Vanderlei Moura realized the case had worrying characteristics that suggested something beyond a voluntary disappearance or runaway. The civil police of Minas Gerais, still adapting to the new investigative methods of the early 90s, mobilized significant resources to find the young woman. The police procedures at the time included exhaustive interviews with family, friends, and acquaintances, checks of hospital and forensic institute records, consultations with bus companies, and contacts with police stations in other cities in Minas Gerais. The forensic technology available in 1993 was limited compared to current standards, mainly relying on fingerprinting, blood, and fiber analysis, and photographs of the crime scene. Investigator Moura focused his initial efforts on 3 main lines of investigation. The first focused on Helena's inner circle, including family, boyfriend, and close friends. The second line of investigation focused on possible criminal motives, such as kidnapping, robbery, or crimes of a sexual nature. The third line considered the possibility that Helena had left Belo Horizonte voluntarily for reasons unknown to her family. Rafael Steinberg, Helena's boyfriend, was one of the first people to be thoroughly investigated. The young man showed complete cooperation with the police, providing details about his relationship with Helena and their last meetings. Raphael revealed that he and Helena had met on the weekend before her disappearance, and she seemed normal, talking about plans for the future and showing enthusiasm for the technical course she was attending. However, Raphael admitted that Helena had mentioned being worried about something in the past few weeks, although she hadn't specified the reason for her concern. When pressed by the investigators, Raphael suggested that the worry might have been related to her job or family pressures, but he couldn't provide more specific information. His alibi for the day of the disappearance was verified and confirmed. He was working at his company, and several witnesses could vouch for his presence. The investigation also focused intensively on Ronaldo Kröger, the man who had shown excessive interest in Helena and offered her a job. When investigators tried to locate him, they discovered that the address he had provided was fake and that the cosmetics company he claimed to represent had never heard of anyone by his name. This discovery turned Ronaldo from a secondary suspect into the main person of interest in the investigation. The search for Ronaldo revealed a disturbing pattern of behavior. Investigations in other cities in Minas Gerais showed that a man with similar physical characteristics had appeared at different businesses, always showing special interest in young female employees and offering suspicious job opportunities. In at least 2 documented cases, young women who had interacted with this man reported to the authorities that he had made inappropriate proposals and demonstrated invasive behavior. Alongside the official investigation, the Bergman family organized their own search efforts. Augusto, Helena's father, took a temporary leave from work to dedicate himself fully to finding his daughter. He and a group of friends and neighbors distributed thousands of flyers with Helena's photo throughout Belo Horizonte. They visited hospitals, shelters, and areas where homeless people gathered, hoping to find any information about the young woman's whereabouts. Ingrid, Helena's mother, coordinated a prayer campaign at her church and organized community meetings to keep the case in the public eye. Local media began to cover the disappearance, with newspapers and radio stations broadcasting information about Helena and asking anyone with information to contact the police. During the investigations, an important discovery was made at the abandoned house in the Santa Teresa neighborhood, the address found on the note in the store's trash. When investigators searched the location, they found signs that someone had been there recently. Food scraps, a used blanket, and, most significantly, a small golden metal earring that Ingrid identified as belonging to Helena. The presence of the earring at the abandoned house confirmed that Helena had been at that location, but also raised disturbing questions about the circumstances of her presence there. The house was located in an isolated part of the neighborhood, known for security issues and frequented by people involved in illicit activities. There seemed to be no reason for Helena to voluntarily go to such a place. The investigation of the abandoned house also revealed that the location had been sporadically used by different people in the months prior. Neighbors reported seeing suspicious activity at the property, including the presence of a middle-aged man who matched the physical description of Ronaldo Kröger. This information further reinforced the suspicion that Ronaldo was directly involved. In Helena's disappearance, months passed without significant progress in the investigation. The police followed numerous leads, interviewed dozens of people, and searched countless locations, but could not locate either Helena or Ronaldo Kröger. The case began to cool off, though it was never officially closed. The Bergman family maintained hope and continued to pressure authorities to keep the investigation active. Media and community pressure led the authorities to expand the investigation to other states, considering the possibility that Helena had been taken outside of Minas Gerais. Contacts were made with police in São Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and other states, but no relevant information was obtained. Helena Bergman's case became one of the most intriguing disappearances in Belo Horizonte in the 90s. Over the years that followed, there were occasional unconfirmed reports from people claiming to have seen Helena in different cities. A woman in São Paulo claimed to have recognized Helena working at a clothing store, but when investigators arrived at the location, they found it was another person. A man in Rio de Janeiro reported seeing a young woman with similar characteristics to Helena, but once again, the lead didn't pan out. In 1998, 5 years after the disappearance, the investigation received new momentum when police arrested a man in São Paulo who was using false documents and was involved in a young recruitment scheme. During the interrogation, the man mentioned knowing someone named Ronaldo, who had operated in Minas Gerais years earlier, but the information provided was vague and did not lead to any concrete developments. The case remained unsolved for nearly 2 decades, becoming an open wound in the Bergman family's life. Augusto and Ingrid never completely lost hope of finding their daughter, but learned to live with the painful uncertainty about her fate. Klaus, Helena's brother, grew up carrying the mark of his sister's disappearance and dedicated part of his adult life to supporting families of the missing. In 2012-19, years after Helena's disappearance, a surprising revelation finally brought answers to the Bergman family. The revelation came through Miriam Brunt, a 53-year-old saleswoman who worked at a department store in Contagem, a metropolitan area of Belo Horizonte. Miriam had kept the secret for nearly 2 decades, a secret she finally decided to reveal when she learned, through a television program, that Helena's case had never been solved. Miriam contacted the police and revealed that in March 1993, she had witnessed a crime that terrified her so much that she moved to another city and never told anyone what she had seen. At the time, Miriam worked as a cleaner in a commercial building in downtown Belo Horizonte and was finishing her duties on the evening of March 15th when she heard screams coming from a vacant apartment on the 2nd floor. Curious and concerned, Miriam went up to the floor and, through a crack in a door that hadn't been fully closed, saw a scene that would haunt her forever. A middle-aged man, whom she later recognized as Ronaldo Kruger through photos shown by the police, was violently assaulting a young woman who exactly matched the description of Helena Bergman. According to Miriam's account, she witnessed Ronaldo killing Helena during a heated argument that had started as an attempt to convince her to accompany him to another state, where he promised her a better job. Helena had discovered that Ronaldo was lying about his identity and intentions, and when she tried to leave the apartment, he stopped her using violence. The situation escalated quickly to the tragic conclusion. Miriam revealed that she was frozen in terror for several minutes, watching Ronaldo clean the area and wrap Helena's body in a blanket. When she finally managed to move, she ran down the stairs and left the building unnoticed. In the following days, terrified by the possibility that Ronaldo would find out she had witnessed the crime, Miriam quit her job, made up an excuse to her family, and moved to a small town in the interior of Minas Gerais. Miriam's revelation finally explained what had happened to Helena that afternoon in March 1993. The phone call Helena had received at work was from Ronaldo, who had convinced her to meet him at the vacant apartment under the pretext of discussing the job offer. The money Helena had withdrawn from the bank was for a trip that Ronaldo had said was necessary for the new job. Helena had gone to the meeting, believing she was taking an important step toward a better future, unaware that she was walking into a deadly trap. Ronaldo, whose real name the police later discovered to be Roberto Schneider, had a history of similar crimes in other states and had chosen Helena as his victim after weeks of observing her routine and vulnerabilities. Based on Miriam's testimony, the police were able to locate Roberto Schneider, who was living under a false identity in the state of Para. He was arrested and, confronted with the evidence and Miriam's testimony, confessed to the murder of Helena. Roberto revealed that he had disposed of the body in a rural area near Belo Horizonte, information that allowed the police to recover the remains of the young woman and finally provide the family with the closure they had been seeking for nearly 20 years. Roberto Schneider's trial took place in 2013, resulting in his conviction to 30 years in prison for qualified homicide. During the trial, additional details of his crimes were revealed, including at least 3 other similar cases in different Brazilian states. The investigation showed that Roberto had been running an elaborate scheme to identify and lure vulnerable young women using fake job offers to entice them into dangerous situations. The Bergman family finally had answers about Helena's fate, although these answers brought renewed pain along with the relief of knowing the truth. Helena's funeral, held 20 years after her death, was a moment of collective mourning, but also a celebration of her memory. Hundreds of people attended to pay their last respects to the young woman who had been brutally ripped from life. Just as she was beginning to build her future. Helena Bergman's case brought significant changes to police procedures for investigating disappearances in Minas Gerais. Authorities implemented stricter protocols for cases involving missing young people and improved coordination between police stations in different cities. Miriam Brunt's courage in finally revealing what she had witnessed also inspired educational campaigns about the importance of reporting crimes to authorities, even when the circumstances are terrifying. Today, Helena is remembered by her family and friends as a young woman full of life and dreams, who deserved the chance to fulfill her ambitions and build her own family. Her story serves as a painful reminder of the dangers that can lurk around vulnerable young people and the importance of community vigilance to protect those in risky situations. The persistence of the Bergman family and Miriam Brunt's eventual testimonies show that even the coldest cases can find resolution when there is enough determination to seek the truth. Justice for Helena came late, but it came, offering at least a little peace to those who loved her and never gave up searching for answers about her disappearance. And so, another mystery is solved. If you figured out the truth before the revelation, share it in the comments. If you like this case, click like right where you're listening from and subscribe to the channel by activating the bell. I'll see you in the next mystery on our channel.